Pack your lies. They don't live here anymore.
The smell of charcoal and burnt hamburgers filled my nostrils as I stood in my father-in-law's backyard, nursing a lukewarm beer and wondering how the heck my life had become a bad sitcom. My wife Sarah was holding court near the pool, her voice carrying that particular pitch it gets when she's had 3 glasses of wine and thinks she's the most fascinating person alive. "You know what I told Dave?" she announced to her assembled audience of relatives and neighbors. "I said, honey, if you're lucky enough to marry me, you better pray every night that I don't decide to cheat on you." The group erupted in laughter, and Sarah shot me a look that was equal parts challenge and mockery. I'm Dave Mitchell, by the way, 38 years old, owner of Mitchell's Auto Repair on Elm Street, and apparently the punchline to my wife's favorite joke. I've been fixing cars for 20 years, built my business from nothing, and somehow ended up married to a woman who thinks my blue-collar existence is something to apologize for at dinner parties. "Oh, Dave's so serious all the time," Sarah continued, gesturing toward me with her wine glass. Maybe if he spent less time under car hoods and more time paying attention to his wife, he wouldn't have to worry about wandering eyes. More laughter. I forced a smile and took another sip of beer, tasting nothing but bitterness. My 17-year-old daughter, Emma, was recording everything on her phone, probably for another TikTok video mocking dear old dad. My 15-year-old son Jake had disappeared inside an hour ago, probably playing video games and avoiding the family dysfunction. "Dave's a good man," my father-in-law Frank said, though his tone suggested he was defending a lost cause. "Works hard, provides for his family." "Oh, absolutely," Sarah agreed with mock sincerity. "He's very dependable, like a golden retriever. Always there, always loyal, never surprising." She laughed at her own wit, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. That's when my Uncle Ray appeared at my elbow. Ray was a retired cop, 62 years old, with eyes that had seen too much and a mouth that usually stayed shut unless he had something important to say. "Walk with me, nephew," he said quietly. We moved away from the crowd, toward the garden shed where Frank kept his lawn equipment. Ray lit a cigarette, even though Aunt Helen had been trying to get him to quit for 10 years. "You gonna let her keep doing that to you?" he asked without preamble. "It's just talk, Ray. She's had a few drinks." "Bees." He blew smoke toward the darkening sky. "I've been watching people for 40 years, Dave. I know the difference between harmless teasing and a woman who's already got one foot out the door." I felt my jaw tighten. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means you need to wake up before you're the last one to know what everyone else is already talking about." Ray dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. "You want to keep your pride? Stop being a doormat. Take control. Quietly." Before I could ask what he meant by that, Sarah's voice cut through the evening air. "Dave, come settle an argument. Jenny thinks you actually enjoy working on cars. I told her you'd rather be doing anything else, but you're stuck because you never finished college." The group was looking at me expectantly, waiting for me to play along with another round of humiliation. Jenny Morrison, Sarah's best friend and owner of the local beauty salon, smiled at me with fake sympathy. "I love my work," I said simply. "Of course you do, honey," Sarah said in the tone you'd use with a slow child. "It's very honest work." That night, lying in bed next to my wife, who was scrolling through her phone and ignoring me completely, I thought about Ray's words. Sarah had been different lately. New clothes, new perfume, staying late at the real estate office more often. She started going to the gym, claimed she was finding herself and exploring her potential. I'd been married to Sarah for 19 years. We'd met when she was 23 and working as a secretary at a law firm. I was 21, just starting my apprenticeship at Murphy's Garage. She used to bring me lunch at work, used to brag to her friends about dating a guy who could fix anything. Now she acted like my calloused hands were an embarrassment. I rolled over and tried to sleep, but Sarah's earlier words kept echoing in my head. "You better pray every night that I don't decide to cheat on you." The thing about prayers is, sometimes they're answered in ways you never expected. 3 weeks after the barbecue, I was under the hood of Mrs. Peterson's ancient Buick when I heard my shop door chime. I looked up to see Sarah walking in, which was unusual. She never came to the shop unless absolutely necessary. "Hey, babe," she said, but her smile seemed forced. "My car's making that weird noise again." "Which weird noise? The rattling from the exhaust or the squeaking from the brakes?" "The squeaking one." She handed me her keys, and I noticed she'd gotten her nails done again. Professional manicure, expensive. "Can you take a look? I've got a big client meeting tomorrow." Sarah drove a 3-year-old Honda Accord. Reliable, practical, boring, just like she used to say I was. I'd been maintaining it since she bought it, so I knew every sound it made. "I'll check it out," I said. "Might be ready by 5 if it's just the brake pads." "Thanks, you're a lifesaver." She kissed my cheek, leaving a trace of lipstick that smelled like vanilla and secrets. "I'll catch a ride with Jenny." After she left, I popped the hood and started my inspection. The brake pads were fine. The rotors looked good. There was no squeaking noise, at least none that I could detect. But while I was checking the fluid levels, something caught my eye. Sarah's purse was sitting on the passenger seat, and the zipper was partially open. I could see the corner of something small and white inside. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. It was an AirTag, Apple's little tracking device, the same kind I'd bought a few months ago to keep track of my tools after someone broke into the shop. But this one wasn't mine. I stared at the small disc, my mind racing. Why would Sarah have a tracking device in her purse? Who was tracking her? Or more disturbing, who was she tracking? Then a worse thought occurred to me. What if she'd put it there herself? What if she wanted someone to be able to find her? I pulled out my phone and downloaded the Find My app. It took me a few minutes to figure out how to detect nearby AirTags, but when I did, the device showed up immediately. According to the app, it had been active for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Right around the time Sarah had started her self-improvement phase. I put the AirTag back where I found it and finished my fake inspection of the car. When Sarah came back at 5:30 with Jenny, I handed her the keys and told her I couldn't find anything wrong. "Maybe it was just a one-time thing," I said. "You're probably right. Thanks, honey." She kissed me again, the same vanilla perfume, the same distracted smile. That night, I couldn't concentrate on anything. I kept thinking about the AirTag, about the way Sarah had been acting, about Ray's warning. I waited until she was asleep, then crept downstairs to my laptop. The Find My app worked on computers too. I logged in with my Apple ID and searched for nearby devices. The AirTag showed up immediately, currently located in our bedroom, but the location history was available too, if you knew how to access it. I spent the next 2 hours learning things I wished I didn't know. The AirTag had been to places Sarah had never mentioned. Downtown locations during her supposed client meetings, a hotel on Riverside Drive, an apartment complex on the other side of town, always during business hours, always on days when she'd told me she was working late. But the most damning evidence was from the previous Tuesday. According to the location data, the AirTag had spent 3 hours at the Riverside Hotel, then moved to Romano's, the expensive Italian restaurant where Sarah and I had celebrated our anniversary 5 years ago. She'd told me she was showing houses to a client from Boston. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, a shared life, and my wife was sneaking around with a tracking device so her lover could find her. The next morning, Sarah was unusually cheerful at breakfast. "I might be late tonight," she announced, buttering her toast with theatrical casualness. "Big presentation for the Morrison account." Jenny Morrison. Her best friend, the one who'd given me that pitying look at the barbecue. "The Morrison account?" I asked. "Different Morrison. Commercial property downtown." She didn't meet my eyes. "Could run until 8 or 9. I nodded and sipped my coffee, tasting nothing but betrayal. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed my wife. At 4:30, I closed the shop early and drove to the parking garage downtown where, according to the AirTag history, Sarah had spent several afternoons recently. I parked on the 3rd level and waited. She arrived at 5:15, driving her Honda into a spot near the elevator, but she didn't get out immediately. Instead, she sat in her car for about 10 minutes, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror and sending text messages. At 5:25, a black BMW pulled into the spot next to her. The driver was a man I recognized but had never met. Marcus Webb, owner of Webb Digital Solutions. I'd seen his picture in the local business journal. Mid-30s, expensive haircut, the kind of guy who wore suits to coffee shops and called everyone chief. Sarah got out of her car and slipped into the passenger seat of the BMW. Through that windshield, I watched them embrace. Not a friendly hug, not a business greeting, the kind of kiss that left no doubt about their relationship. I sat in my truck, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Part of me wanted to march over there and confront them. Part of me wanted to drive home and pretend I'd never seen anything. But a larger part, the part that sounded like Uncle Ray, told me to wait and watch. They drove out of the garage together. I followed at a distance, my hands shaking with adrenaline. They went to the Riverside Hotel, Just like the AirTag data had shown, Marcus had a room key ready. I parked across the street and called Ray. "I need your help," I said when he answered. "What kind of help?" "The kind that won't get me arrested." Ray was quiet for a moment. "Where are you?" I told him. 20 minutes later, his old Chevy pickup pulled up next to mine. "How long have you known?" he asked. "About an hour, for certain. 3 weeks of suspicion." Ray studied the hotel entrance. "You want to confront them or gather evidence?" "I want to make them pay." "Good. Confrontation is for amateurs. Evidence is for professionals." He handed me a small digital camera. "But first, you need to know exactly what you're dealing with." We waited. At 7:30, Sarah and Marcus emerged from the hotel looking relaxed and satisfied. They got back in the BMW and drove to Romano's, the same restaurant where Sarah and I had celebrated our anniversary. I took pictures, lots of pictures. "That's enough for tonight," Ray said. "Now comes the hard part." "Which is going home and acting normal while you figure out your next move?" The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Sarah's car was already in the driveway when I arrived. I found her in the kitchen, humming while she prepared dinner. "How was your day?" she asked without looking up from the stove. "Fine, yours?" "Exhausting." The Morrison presentation ran longer than expected, but I think we landed the account. She turned and smiled at me. The same smile she'd given Marcus Webb 3 hours earlier. "I'm starving. I barely had time for lunch." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the camera at her feet and demand an explanation. Instead, I kissed her cheek and asked if she needed help with dinner. "You're sweet," she said, patting my arm like I was a helpful pet. During dinner, Emma regaled us with drama from high school, and Jake mumbled answers to Sarah's questions about his day. It was perfectly normal, perfectly domestic, and it made me sick. "Dad, you're quiet tonight," Emma observed. "Just tired," I said. "He works too hard," Sarah said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "I keep telling him he should hire more help at the shop." The casual hypocrisy was breathtaking. Here she was, playing the concerned wife, while her lover's cologne was probably still on her clothes. After dinner, I retreated to the garage and called Ray. "I can't do this," I said. "I can't sit there and pretend everything's normal while she lies to my face." "Yes, you can. Because if you blow up now, she gets to play the victim. Poor Sarah, married to a jealous, controlling husband who doesn't trust her. You'll lose the kids, lose the house, lose everything, and she'll ride off into the sunset with her tech millionaire." "So, what do I do?" "You get smart, you get patient, and you get even." Ray's advice made sense, but it was easier said than done. Over the next week, I watched my wife lie to me every single day. She had client meetings and property showings and networking events, all of which were really rendezvous with Marcus Webb. I documented everything. Photos, times, locations. I learned Marcus's schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. I discovered he was married too, to a woman named Patricia who thought her husband was working late on important projects. But the worst part wasn't the cheating itself. It was watching Sarah transform into someone I didn't recognize. She became more critical, more dismissive, more cruel. She made jokes about my appearance at dinner parties. She complained about our house, our car, our life to anyone who would listen. "Dave's so set in his ways," she told her sister during a phone call I overheard. "He has no ambition, no vision. Sometimes I wonder what I was thinking when I married him." That's when I realized the truth. Sarah wasn't just cheating on me. She was preparing to leave me. The public humiliation, the constant criticism, the way she was poisoning our kids against me, it was all part of her exit strategy. She wanted me to be the bad guy so she could be the victim. But I had other plans. 2 weeks into my surveillance operation, I was developing a comprehensive understanding of my wife's affair. Sarah and Marcus met 3 times a week, always at the Riverside Hotel, always between 5 and 8 p.m. They'd started getting careless, holding hands in public, kissing in parking lots where anyone could see them. But I wasn't the only one who'd noticed. "Dave, we need to talk," Jenny Morrison said when she showed up at my shop on a Thursday afternoon. Jenny was Sarah's best friend, business partner in several real estate deals, and the owner of Sheer Perfection, the beauty salon where half the town's women got their hair done and all their gossip distributed. "What about?" I asked, not looking up from the transmission I was rebuilding. "About Sarah." That got my attention. I wiped my hands on a rag and turned to face her. Jenny looked uncomfortable, which was unusual. She was normally the kind of woman who thrived on other people's drama. "What about her?" "People are talking, Dave. About her and Marcus Webb. What kind of talking? Jenny shifted her weight from one foot to the other. The kind that's going to get back to you eventually. I thought you should hear it from a friend first. A friend. Right. Jenny had been encouraging Sarah's self-discovery journey from the beginning. She'd been the one pushing Sarah to explore her options and not settle for less than she deserved. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully. Look, I know this is awkward, but Sarah's my friend. I care about her happiness. And what about my happiness? Jenny's expression hardened slightly. Sarah deserves to be with someone who appreciates her, someone who can give her the life she wants. There it was, the real message. Jenny hadn't come to warn me out of friendship. She'd come to deliver an ultimatum. Step aside gracefully or be pushed. I see, I said. I hope you do, for everyone's sake. After Jenny left, I called Ray. Sarah's friends are circling the wagons, I told him. Expected. What did Jenny say exactly? I repeated the conversation word for word. Ray was quiet for a long moment. She's testing you, he said finally. Seeing if you'll roll over or fight back. Your response determines their next move. Which should be what? Nothing yet. Let them think they're in control. Meanwhile, we gather more ammunition. That weekend, Sarah announced she was going to a real estate conference in Hartford. She'd be gone Saturday and Sunday, staying overnight at the conference hotel. It's a great networking opportunity, she explained over breakfast. Some of the biggest names in New England real estate will be there. I nodded supportively. Sounds important? It could really boost my career. Maybe it's time I started thinking bigger than this little town. Emma looked up from her phone. Are you and Dad getting divorced? The question hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's face went through several expressions, surprise, guilt, annoyance, before settling on maternal concern. Why would you ask that, honey? Because you guys barely talk anymore, and you're always going to meetings or conferences or whatever. Plus, Madison's parents got divorced last year and her mom did the same thing. Lots of business trips right before she moved out. Sarah reached across the table and took Emma's hand. Your father and I are going through a rough patch, but that doesn't mean we're getting divorced. Sometimes adults need space to figure things out. Jake snorted. That's what Madison's mom said too. After the kids left for school, Sarah turned to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. We should talk, she said. About what? About us. About where we're headed. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was it. The conversation I'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure. Okay. Sarah took a deep breath. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately. About my life, my goals, what I want for the future. And I think we want different things, Dave. You're content with the status quo, the shop, this house, this town, but I want more. More what? More everything. More excitement, more opportunity, more passion. The word hung between us like an accusation. I thought about Marcus Webb, about the hotel room, about the lies and the betrayal and the casual cruelty of it all. I see, I said. Do you? Because I don't think you do. I don't think you understand how suffocating this all feels sometimes. Suffocating. Yes, the same routine day after day. You go to the shop, I show houses, we come home, we eat dinner, we watch TV, we go to bed, rinse and repeat. Where's the adventure? Where's the romance? I stared at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 20 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger. The Sarah I'd married would never have called our life together suffocating. She would never have made me feel like a burden she was tired of carrying. So, what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying maybe we should consider a trial separation. Give each other some space to figure out what we really want. There it was, the setup, the justification for what she'd already decided to do. She wasn't asking for space to think. She was asking for permission to leave me for Marcus Webb without looking like the villain. A trial separation, I repeated, just temporarily to see how we feel. And where would you go during this trial separation? I don't know. Maybe I could rent a place downtown. Something small, just until we figure things out. Something small. Like Marcus Webb's penthouse apartment. I need to think about it, I said. Sarah's face brightened with relief. Of course, take all the time you need. She kissed my forehead like I was a child who'd finally agreed to take his medicine. That afternoon, I drove to Ray's house and told him about the conversation. She's accelerating the timeline, he said. Probably because Webb is pressuring her to make a decision. So, what do I do? Ray smiled, and for the first time in weeks, it wasn't a sympathetic smile. It was the smile of a man who'd been waiting for the right moment to spring a trap. Now we stop playing defense and start playing offense. The Hartford Real Estate Conference was a fiction, of course. I confirmed this with a simple phone call to the Hartford Convention Center, where no real estate events were scheduled that weekend. Sarah was spending the weekend with Marcus Webb at his lake house in Millfield, about an hour north of town. I knew this because I'd been tracking the AirTag, and because Ray had a friend who worked at the gas station where Marcus filled up his BMW every Friday afternoon. "You sure you want to do this?" Ray asked as we sat in his kitchen Saturday morning, finalizing our plan. "I'm sure. Because once we start, there's no going back. Your marriage is over either way, but this path makes sure you're not the one who gets destroyed in the process." I thought about Sarah's speech the day before, about trial separations and finding herself and needing space. I thought about Emma asking if we were getting divorced, and Jake's bitter comment about Madison's parents. I thought about 20 years of marriage being thrown away for a man in an expensive suit who probably saw Sarah as nothing more than a temporary diversion. "I'm sure," I said again. The first phase of Ray's plan was information gathering. While Sarah was at the lake house, we broke into her home office, technically not breaking since I lived there, and photographed everything. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records, email printouts. Sarah had been sloppy, probably because she never expected me to fight back. The evidence was damning. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, purchases at Victoria's Secret and expensive boutiques. She'd been using our joint credit card to finance her affair, spending our money on lingerie and dinners for another man. But the real treasure trove was her laptop. "She didn't even password protect it," Ray marveled as we scrolled through her email. "Look at this." The emails between Sarah and Marcus went back 4 months. They started professional discussions about a potential real estate deal, but quickly became personal, then intimate, then explicit. In one particularly graphic exchange, Sarah wrote, "I can't wait to be free of this boring life. Dave's a good man, but he's not enough for me anymore. I need someone with ambition, someone who understands what I'm capable of." Marcus's response was equally revealing. "Soon, baby. Just a little longer and we can be together openly. Patricia suspects something, but she won't make a scene. Too much money at stake in the divorce." So Marcus was planning to leave his wife too. 2 marriages destroyed so they could play house together. But the most damaging email was from Jenny Morrison to Sarah. "I talked to Dave yesterday. He's completely clueless. Just keep playing the unhappy wife angle for a few more weeks and he'll agree to anything. Men like him always do." I stared at the screen, feeling a rage so pure it was almost cleansing. Jenny hadn't come to my shop to warn me. She'd come to manipulate me, to make sure I'd be a compliant victim in their little drama. "We've got them," Ray said quietly. "What's the next step?" Ray's smile was predatory. "Now we let them think they've won, and then we destroy them." Sunday evening, Sarah returned from her fictional conference, full of stories about networking opportunities and potential business deals. "How was your weekend?" she asked as she unpacked her overnight bag. "Quiet. Watched some TV, worked on the truck." "You should get out more, Dave. Maybe join a club or something. It's not healthy to spend so much time alone." The casual condescension was breathtaking. She was already treating me like a pathetic ex-husband who couldn't function without her. "Maybe you're right," I said. That week, I played the role of the defeated husband perfectly. I was quiet at dinner, distracted during conversations, mildly depressed in a way that suggested I was coming to terms with the end of my marriage. Sarah responded by being kinder to me, more patient. "The way you treat someone you were about to put out of their misery." "I've been thinking about what you said," I told her Thursday night, "about the trial separation." Sarah's eyes lit up with hope and guilt in equal measure. "And? Maybe you're right. Maybe we do need some space to figure things out." "Oh, Dave." She hugged me, and I smelled Marcus Webb's cologne on her hair. "I think this could be really good for both of us." "When were you thinking of moving out?" "Well, I don't want to rush anything, but I did see a nice apartment downtown. It's available at the end of the month." 3 weeks. She was giving herself 3 weeks to finalize her exit strategy. "That sounds reasonable," I said. Friday afternoon, Jenny Morrison came into the shop again. This time, she was practically glowing with satisfaction. "I heard you and Sarah are taking some time apart," she said. "Word travels fast." "Small town. People talk." She examined her manicured nails. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Sarah needs room to grow." Is that what you call it? Jenny's eyes narrowed slightly. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just wondering what kind of growing she's planning to do. The kind that doesn't involve being held back by someone who's given up on life. There it was again. The casual cruelty, the assumption that I was too weak or stupid to fight back. I see, I said. I hope you do, and I hope you'll be mature about this whole situation, for the kids' sake. After she left, I called Ray. It's time, I said. You sure? I'm sure. Then let's give them a weekend they'll never forget. Saturday morning, Sarah kissed me goodbye and told me she was spending the day with Jenny, looking at apartments and discussing her future. She'd be home late, probably after 10. She was lying, of course. According to the AirTag, she was heading to Marcus Webb's penthouse for what they probably thought would be a romantic afternoon. Ray and I had other plans. At noon, I drove to Webb Digital Solutions and parked across the street. Marcus's BMW was in his reserved parking spot, which meant he was still at the office, probably finishing up work before his rendezvous with my wife. I walked into the building and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Webb Digital Solutions occupied half the floor, with Marcus's corner office clearly visible through glass walls. He was on the phone, gesturing animatedly while he talked. I waited in the lobby until he finished his call, then knocked on his office door. Dave Mitchell, I said when he opened it. Sarah's husband. Marcus went pale. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of soft handsomeness that came from expensive grooming and a life without calluses. What can I do for you? He stammered. We need to talk. Marcus glanced around nervously, probably worried that his employees might overhear. Maybe we should go somewhere private. Your office is fine, unless you're expecting someone. He wasn't expecting Sarah for another hour, but he didn't know I knew that. Look, Dave, I think there might be some misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos Ray and I had taken. Marcus and Sarah kissing in the parking garage. Pretty clear, actually. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. How long have you known? Long enough. The question is, what are we going to do about it? What do you want? I studied his face. He was scared, but not remorseful. This wasn't a man who felt guilty about destroying 2 marriages. This was a man who was worried about getting caught. I want you to understand something, I said. Sarah thinks she's in love with you. She thinks you're going to leave your wife and ride off into the sunset together. But you and I both know that's not going to happen, don't we? Marcus didn't answer, but his expression told me everything I needed to know. See, I did some research on you, Marcus. You've been married to Patricia for 8 years. She comes from money old Connecticut family, trust fund, all that. And according to your prenup, if you cheat on her, you get nothing in the divorce. Now Marcus looked genuinely frightened. How do you know about the prenup? Lucky guess. But I'm right, aren't I? He nodded reluctantly. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to end things with Sarah, today. And you're going to do it in a way that makes it clear this was never serious for you. And if I don't? I smiled. And it wasn't a nice smile. Then, Patricia gets copies of all the emails, all the photos, and all the credit card receipts. How much do you think your little affair has cost you? 50,000? 100,000? Patricia's lawyers will have a field day. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What about Sarah? Sarah's my problem. An hour later, I was parked outside Marcus's penthouse building when Sarah arrived. She looked excited, probably expecting a romantic afternoon with her lover. She was inside for exactly 12 minutes. When she came out, she was crying. I followed her as she drove aimlessly around town for 20 minutes before finally pulling into the parking lot of Riverside Park. She sat in her car, sobbing into her hands, and I felt something that might have been pity if I hadn't seen those emails. My phone rang. It was Marcus. I did what you asked, he said. What exactly did you tell her? That it was fun while it lasted, but I could never leave Patricia, that she was convenient but not worth losing everything over. Good. And if she tries to contact you, I'll ignore her calls. Smart man. I hung up and drove home. Sarah didn't return until almost midnight, and when she did, her eyes were red and puffy. She went straight to bed without speaking to me. Sunday morning, she was quiet and distracted. She kept checking her phone, probably hoping Marcus would call and tell her it was all a misunderstanding. He didn't call. Are you okay? I asked over breakfast. Fine, just tired. How was your day with Jenny yesterday? Sarah's face crumpled slightly. It was educational. That afternoon, Jenny Morrison called the house. I answered. "Is Sarah there?" she asked. "She's taking a nap. Can I take a message?" "Just tell her I called. About yesterday." "Sure, everything okay? Sarah seemed upset when she got home." There was a pause. "She's fine, just some disappointment about an apartment. The one she wanted fell through." "That's too bad. I know she was excited about it." After I hung up, I smiled. Jenny was scrambling, trying to figure out what had gone wrong with their plan. Sarah was supposed to be triumphant, ready to start her new life with Marcus Webb. Instead, she was heartbroken and confused, but I wasn't done yet. Monday morning, I drove to Patricia Webb's art gallery downtown. She was an elegant woman in her early 40s, with a kind of quiet confidence that came from old money and good breeding. "Mrs. Webb? I'm Dave Mitchell. I think we need to talk about your husband." An hour later, Patricia had copies of everything. The emails, the photos, the credit card statements. She examined each piece of evidence with the cool detachment of someone who'd suspected the truth, but needed proof. "How long?" she asked. 4 months that I can prove." "Probably longer," Patricia nodded. "And your wife, what are you planning to do about her?" "That's between Sarah and me." "Of course." Patricia stood and extended her hand. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Mr. Mitchell. I know this couldn't have been easy." "No, it wasn't." "For what it's worth, I'm sorry about your marriage, I mean." "So am I." That evening, Sarah was unusually quiet at dinner. She kept glancing at her phone, but no calls or messages came. Finally, Emma broke the uncomfortable silence. "Mom, are you and Dad still getting separated?" Sarah looked startled. We're still discussing it. Because Madison said her mom got really weird right before the divorce. Like crying all the time and checking her phone constantly." "I'm not crying all the time," Sarah said defensively. "You cried yesterday," Jake observed. "I heard you in your room." Sarah's face flushed. "Sometimes adults cry, Jake. It doesn't mean anything's wrong." But something was wrong, and we all knew it. The confident, self-assured woman who'd been planning her escape just a week ago had been replaced by someone anxious and uncertain. After dinner, Sarah cornered me in the kitchen. "Dave, about the separation, maybe we should slow down a little. Think it through more carefully." "Changed your mind?" "Not changed exactly, just maybe we should try counseling first. See if we can work things out." I looked at my wife, this woman who'd been ready to abandon our family for a man who'd just discarded her like a used tissue, and felt something cold settle in my chest. "It's too late for that, Sarah." "What do you mean?" "I mean I know about Marcus Webb." The color drained from Sarah's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The hotel rooms, the restaurants, the emails. I know everything." Sarah sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs. "How? Does it matter?" She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes were filled with tears that might have been genuine. "It's over," she whispered. "He ended it yesterday. Said it was just a fling. That I didn't mean anything to him." "And now you want to work on our marriage?" "I made a mistake, Dave, a terrible mistake, but it's over now. We can get past this." I studied her face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse. All I saw was desperation. "No," I said quietly. "We can't." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you made your choice, Sarah. You chose Marcus Webb over our family. The fact that he didn't choose you back doesn't change anything." "But I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I represent. You love having a backup plan, but you don't love me." Sarah started crying in earnest now. "That's not true. I was confused. I was going through something, but I never stopped loving you. You called our life suffocating. You said I had no ambition, no vision. You told Marcus I wasn't enough for you anymore." Her eyes widened. "You read my emails? Every one of them. That's invasion of privacy." The sheer audacity of it took my breath away. She was outraged that I'd violated her privacy while conducting an affair. "You're right," I said. "I should have respected your privacy while you were sleeping with another man in hotel rooms paid for with our credit card." Sarah flinched as if I'd slapped her. "Don't be crude." "Crude? You want to talk about crude? How about this email? Dave's pathetic in bed. He has no idea how to satisfy a real woman. I fake it every time just to get it over with." "Remember writing that?" Sarah's face went white. "I was angry. I didn't mean it." "Or this one. I can't wait to see the look on Dave's face when I tell him I'm leaving. He'll probably cry like a little boy." "Did you mean that one?" "Stop." Or my personal favorite. "The kids will be better off without Dave's influence. He's turning them into small-town losers just like him. Stop it, Sarah was sobbing now. I was trying to convince myself. I was trying to make it easier to leave. Well, congratulations. You convinced me too. I walked toward the kitchen door, then turned back. Pack your things, Sarah. I want you out by the end of the week. You can't throw me out. This is my house too. Actually, I can. See, while you were busy planning your new life with Marcus, I was busy protecting myself. I've got copies of everything, the emails, the credit card statements, the hotel receipts. New York might be a no-fault divorce state, but adultery still matters when it comes to asset division and custody. You bastard. Maybe. But I'm a bastard who's not going to let you destroy our kids' lives because you got bored with being a responsible adult. I left Sarah crying in the kitchen and went upstairs to tell Emma and Jake that their mother would be moving out. They took the news better than I expected. Kids are more perceptive than adults give them credit for. Is it because Mom was cheating? Emma asked. I was so surprised by the directness of the question that I answered honestly. Yes. Good, Jake said. She's been really mean lately. And fake, Emma added. Like super fake. Always pretending to be happy when she was obviously miserable. That night, I lay in bed alone for the first time in 20 years and tried to figure out how I felt. I wasn't sad exactly. I wasn't angry anymore either. I was relieved. The marriage had been over for months. I'd just been too stubborn or too scared to admit it. Sarah had done me a favor by cheating with Marcus Webb. She'd forced me to see the truth about what our relationship had become, but I still wasn't finished with her. Sarah moved out the following Friday, taking only her clothes and personal items. She found a small apartment across town, not the luxury place she'd planned to share with Marcus Webb, but a modest one-bedroom that she could afford on her real estate commissions. The kids stayed with me. Sarah had visitation rights, but Emma and Jake made it clear they weren't interested in spending much time with their mother. The betrayal had hurt them more than Sarah realized. She keeps texting me, Emma told me one evening, wanting to explain her side of the story. But what's to explain? She cheated on you and was going to abandon us for some rich guy. She wasn't going to abandon you, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. Dad, I read some of her emails too, before you changed the password on her laptop. I looked at my daughter, the 17-year-old who was rapidly becoming wiser than her years. What did you read? The one where she told Marcus that we'd be better off with him as a stepfather, that you were holding us back. I felt a familiar surge of anger, but pushed it down. Sarah was gone. The marriage was over. I needed to focus on moving forward, not looking back. But moving forward didn't mean letting her off the hook entirely. 2 weeks after Sarah moved out, I got a call from Jenny Morrison. We need to talk, she said. About what? About Sarah, and about you being vindictive. I almost laughed. Vindictive? You destroyed her relationship with Marcus Webb. You turned her own children against her. You're trying to ruin her life. I'm trying to protect my family by being cruel and petty. Jenny, let me ask you something. Did you know about the affair? There was a pause. I suspected. Did you encourage it? Another pause. Sarah was unhappy. She deserved better. So you helped her cheat on her husband and planned to abandon her children. That's not what happened. Isn't it? Because I've got emails that suggest otherwise, including some from you to Sarah, coaching her on how to manipulate me into agreeing to a divorce. Jenny was quiet. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to stay out of my business. You're not going to spread rumors about me being vindictive or cruel. And you're not going to try to turn people in this town against me. Or what? Or I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of friend you really are. How you helped destroy a 20-year marriage because you thought it would be entertaining. You wouldn't. Try me. Jenny hung up without another word. The next day, Sarah called. Jenny says you threatened her. I explained some boundaries to her. She was just trying to help me. Help you what? Cheat on your husband? Abandon your children? Destroy your family? It wasn't like that. Sarah, it was exactly like that. You made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. The consequences? Dave, I lost everything. Marcus won't even take my calls. My own children barely speak to me. I'm living in a crappy apartment and eating ramen noodles for dinner. And whose fault is that? Sarah was quiet for a moment. I know I made mistakes, but did you have to be so thorough in your revenge? Revenge? Is that what you think this is? Isn't it? I considered the question. Was it revenge or was it justice? Or was it simply self-preservation? I protected myself and my children, I said finally. If that feels like revenge to you, maybe you should think about why. I want to see Emma and Jake. They don't want to see you, but that's between you and them, not between you and me. They're my children, too. Then act like their mother instead of a woman who was ready to abandon them for a man with a bigger bank account. Sarah hung up. That weekend, Emma came to me with a proposal. Dad, I want to change my last name. To what? I want to drop Mom's maiden name and just be Emma Mitchell. Sarah had hyphenated the kids' names when they were born, Mitchell Porter. It was important to her that they carry on her family name. Are you sure? I asked. I'm sure Jake wants to do it too. This isn't something you need to do for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. I don't want to be connected to someone who would do what she did. The following Monday, I filed the paperwork for the name changes. It was a small thing, but it felt significant. Emma and Jake were choosing their identity, choosing which parent they wanted to be associated with. They chose me. 3 months after Sarah moved out, I ran into Marcus Webb at the grocery store. He looked terrible, thinner, older, with the haunted expression of a man whose life had imploded. Dave, he said when he saw me. Marcus. We stood in the cereal aisle, two men whose lives had been forever changed by a series of bad decisions. I heard Patricia filed for divorce, I said. He nodded. Last month, she's taking everything. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? I considered the question. Actually, yes, I didn't want to destroy your life. I just wanted to protect mine. Well, congratulations, you succeeded. Marcus walked away without another word. I never saw him again. I heard later that he'd moved to California, trying to start over with nothing. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Sarah came to the house to pick up some things she'd left behind. She looked different, older, sadder, but maybe more honest than she'd been in years. How are the kids? She asked. They're good. Emma got into state. Jake made varsity basketball. That's wonderful. She seemed to mean it. Do they ever ask about me? Sometimes. What do you tell them? I tell them their mother made some bad choices, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love them. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Don't thank me. Fix it. If you want a relationship with your children, earn it. How? Figure it out, Sarah. You're a smart woman. You know what you did wrong. Start there. After she left, I sat in my kitchen and thought about the past year. The betrayal, the anger, the careful planning of my response. Had it been worth it? I looked around at my house, still mine. I thought about Emma and Jake, upstairs doing homework, secure in the knowledge that their father would never abandon them. I thought about my business, thriving now that I wasn't distracted by a failing marriage. Yes, it had been worth it. Not because I'd gotten revenge on Sarah and Marcus Webb, not because I'd won some kind of contest, but because I'd refused to be a victim. I'd refused to let other people's bad choices destroy my life and my children's future. Sarah had called it revenge. But she was wrong. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. And sometimes, justice looks a lot like the consequences of your own actions finally catching up with you. 2 years later, I'm still living in the same house, still running the same business, still raising my children. Sarah has visitation rights, but Emma and Jake rarely take advantage of them. They've built their own relationship with their mother, cautious, limited, but real. Sarah works for a different real estate company now. She dates occasionally, but nothing serious. She learned something from her experience with Marcus Webb, though I'm not sure what exactly. As for me, I've learned that marriage is like a car engine. When it starts making strange noises, you can ignore the problem and hope it goes away, or you can pop the hood and figure out what's wrong. If you wait too long, the whole thing seizes up and you're left with nothing but scrap metal. My marriage seized up, but I salvaged what I could from the wreckage, my children, my home, my self-respect. And in the end, that was enough. Jenny Morrison still runs her beauty salon, but we don't speak. She learned that there are consequences for helping people destroy their families, even if those consequences are just social isolation and a damaged reputation. Marcus Webb learned that affairs are expensive, especially when your wife has better lawyers than you do. And Sarah learned that the grass isn't always greener on the other side of the fence. Sometimes it's just different grass, and sometimes it's not grass at all. Just weeds that look pretty from a distance. But the most important lesson I learned was this. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't make excuses for them. Don't try to fix them. Don't hope they'll change. Just believe them and act accordingly. Because in the end, people don't really change. They just get better at hiding who they've always been. And when the mask finally comes off, you want to be ready for what you're going to see underneath. I was ready, and that made all the difference.